Okay, great. Looks like we're live. Thank you all for joining us today. We'll just start off with brief introductions for myself and David. So, hi folks, my name is Neil McGough. I'm Director of Customer Success and Support with Learnosity. I also oversee our partnerships and business development engineering team. I've been working with Learnosity for 7 years, kind of really working where the technical and product side meets the commercial side of our business. Mostly to make sure that our customers are getting as much real world value out of our technical product as they can.
Hi, I'm Dave Bailis. I'm the Senior Director of Operations at Westchester Education Services. I lead up the team that makes the stuff that you're looking for. So we create materials K through 20, the core 4 as well as CTE, SEL, and DEI programs. So we both work in the technical side for ed tech and digital programs as well as print products. And so, yeah, today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite parts of my job, developing items that either enhance or are the core product, and with our preferred partner, Learnosity, to create those items. So, Neil, take it away.
Great. So from our side, where we'll start off is just kind of giving you a little bit of overview of Learnosity for any of those of you who haven't kind of come across us before. Looking at the attendee and participant list, I can see a few familiar names. So I know there are some where that'll be a bit of a rehash, but I think it's definitely worth going through. Going through a little bit about our partner network. Obviously, Westchester are really a shining light of of our partner network, and kind of exemplify the the goals we have set for that, and then kind of bring you through some detail of kind of the offering there. So just starting off, just in terms of who are Learnosity, we're an assessment technology company providing a suite of powerful embeddable tools and the scalable platform that goes behind that. Our ultimate aim within what we build and what we provide is to allow our customers to build the best learning experience they possibly can, powered by robust, scalable, accessible assessments, whether that be the really, really formative end of embedded learning through kind of through a kind of text experience, or whether that be more kind of structured testing within that. So as part of that, we provide 3 areas of core functionality. We provide authoring, a hosted authoring site, and an embedded authoring tool where you can create rich assessment content, and where partners of ours like Westchester create really, really valuable, really great content into that, using a wider range of question types, rich content layouts, structures, test formats, all of those kind of things that go with it. Alongside that then, and really key to the whole thing, is the assessment side, the assessment delivery part of the platform, covering the delivery of assessments into products at huge scale, and in a way that's seamless to the end user. It's part of your product, and the idea is to accelerate your product and development journey to get to market, or to really allow you to get past the roadblocks that you've hit when you realize that your current solution may not be up to your users' needs. Really customizable to you, and hugely reliable. And then on top of that, our analytics piece, both simple, clear analytics, and complex, larger group reports, learning outcome reports, and that kind of thing, to help your users and you get more out of that data. Our key value proposition with our customers is really being able to do the hard bits, do what has become over time now the table stakes of assessment that aren't ultimately going to be on their own. Each of those single things is not going to be the key differentiator to your product, but your customers expect them, and the level of quality that you have to provide is higher than it's ever been before. And really take away that heavy lifting and those kind of very expensive, very time-consuming pieces to build, and encapsulate them into something that's easy to integrate, that's of a top quality, and comparatively maintenance-free compared with actually owning and having to maintain an in-house build. Our CEO, Kevin Cooney, is actually giving a talk on Thursday about combating not invented here syndrome. And that's really a key part of our value to customers. And also, as we start to talk about a partner network, value partners like Westchester, something that we very much take to heart and kind of live as a philosophy ourselves. The aim these days is, originally the outsourcing conversation and using outside organizations or outside builds to do key parts of your functionality was really in the early days based around cost savings. Now it's based around ensuring that you get the highest quality you possibly can by using the subject matter experts available to you. And as we started to build out our partner network, and as we grew that, and as we started working with Westchester and other organizations, that was really the key part of it, was to realize that we are niche in terms of the assessment technology, but our customers need more, and they need partners who can build and take advantage of the rich feature set we've created, and take advantage of the complex authoring functionality we have, all the power within it, and really provide them a faster go to market. One thing I'll just touch on before I hand back over to David to give a bit of Westchester introduction as well is, underpinning all of that development piece is really a hugely scalable platform, and adherence to quality and accessibility for end users. So to give you an idea of the scale that we're dealing with on a monthly basis, which I feel is very topical and very interesting, seeing as what we've seen so far is, during the middle of COVID lockdown was 1.5 times our previous back to school high points, and now this back to school, as so many of our customers have pivoted and had their users lean significantly heavier on online learning than they ever had before, is that we're seeing, we're delivering at scale to over 120,000 over 120 customers, to over 21 million monthly active users at the moment, delivering over 1.8 billion questions in a 12-month period. We've seen growth year on year, especially at the start of COVID in the school year for our customers. And I'm sure David will tell you they've seen more and more demand for high quality content. And the key thing for us, I think, is to ensure that our customers are supported through that journey, and able to lean on both Learnosity and Westchester as experts in that field.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Neil. And just to start off, what does it mean to be a good Learnosity partner? Early on, our CEO, Kevin Gray, realized that it would be a great idea, based on the demand that we've had in the industry, to become specialized not only in a variety of assessment platforms, but specifically in Learnosity, because it was the name that came up the most. So, when I was brought on, I was at first in the STEM role, in the STEM development role, and as you might imagine, there were tremendous amounts of need for developing science and math items. So I took it upon myself to become very familiar with the system, and we have a large team that can scale up and develop a large number of items in a short period of time. How do we get this done? Well, a lot of it really has to do with how easy the platform is. So when we started getting into Learnosity and the whole team was trained on it, you got this sense very early on that it was not only easy to manipulate what you needed to find the item types that the clients were looking for, but also that, like Neil said, very high quality items in terms of the information you can get from the scoring and the type of quality that you could build very quickly. So while we haven't built 1.8 billion items in the last 12 months, we have built tens of thousands of items for math, for science, and for ELA programs in a variety of customers. And so several customers have come to us specifically for our expertise in Learnosity, because we are a preferred partner, and we're very proud of that. So I think what we're going to do now is we're going to go through a couple of item types to show you how easy it is to build these. So I am going to share my screen, or at least attempt to. Let's see. Neil, can you see my screen? Is my screen up, Neil?
Sorry, yep, you're live.
Okay, great. Okay, perfect. So when you first open the authoring tool, this is the sort of thing you'll see. You can do a search for reference number based on a set of tagging that I'll show you. And you can have a variety of, all of these are items that were created previously. So let's go in and create a new item. Oh boy. Sorry about that. You kicked me out. Okay. So we're going to create a new item. I'm going to show you a couple of simpler items that we're going to create, and then Neil is going to follow up with some really amazing stuff. So let's say that you're being asked by, coming to Westchester, you're like, I need a large number of multiple choice items, and I need them to test addition of 2-digit numbers. So one of the item types, and there's a variety of item types, one of the item types is multiple choice. As you can see, very simple layout. And we can create a problem. Printing them, and you have an item. Now there's a large number of other options that you have here in terms of scoring, how it's laid out, and then a variety of different rationales and other materials that you can use to store data. In addition, you can add tags for state standards, if you want to tag into that, or the type of maths, just so that it's searchable. So let's save our item. We can preview it, hoping I did the math right, and as you can see, it's correct. So as simple as that. As you can see, a multiple choice item took maybe 30 seconds to create. So that's how we can get up to 1.8 billion items in such a short period of time, for sure, because it's so easy. But that's not the only other type of item that we can do. We have a variety of items. So not only the standard multiple choice items, but also drag and drops and there's classification that we could make, written and recorded items, math-specific items if you need to develop either with fractions or matrices or put an image in there, graphing items, the charts, basically anything you could possibly imagine this stuff could do. So let's do something slightly different. Let's do a drag and drop. Sorry. So I just wanted to show you one of the possibilities for math. So if we're trying to develop a fraction problem, we can also, you have the option of allowing it to determine whether it's the right answer without having to plug in all the possible answers. So I wanted to point that out as another possible thing that you can do. In other words, the things that I could say about having worked with Learnosity now for several years, it's very easy, it's very complete, and there's a lot of opportunities to build a tremendous number of items in a short period of time, as well as difficult items, more complex items. And Neil's going to take you through a couple of those right now.
Great. Thank you very much for the handover, David. Let me just share my screen. Okay. You see my screen?
Yes.
Fantastic. So yeah, so what we'll bring you through here will be a couple of things. We'll kind of go through, kind of some more complex items, drill a little bit into kind of more complex content for ELA and for math, and also just bring you through some new features that we've built into the into our kind of hosted author site over the last while as well, that are really useful for enhancing both the workflow about how you work with content and what you can do with it. First thing I draw attention to would be our nice new skin and new experience for the author site. We've been rebuilding this over the last while. So as we're rolling this out to give a much more seamless experience over the next few months. So I'm going to go in, and the first thing I'll do is walk through creating a more complex ELA question, because ELA questions can obviously be at a relatively simple level at the earlier grade levels and that kind of thing. And then you start to get into the world of things like comparative texts and more complex content. And building those things can get time consuming if you don't have the right tools. So let's go and create a new item to start with. When we usually start off, an item is just, is going to be one or more questions in kind of one pane of a view. We can go and we can change that through our layouts. We can set this to a 50-50 structure here. We can decide we're going to put tabs on the left-hand side. We'll put a vertical divider. We'll turn on some scrolling. So now we got that set up. And what we're going to do here, so the source content I have for this is actually something I found from the Nebraska Department of Education this morning, covering a grade 6 or 7 comparative question. So it's comparing a piece of a short essay with a piece of poetry. So let's start off, and we'll go with prose and poetry. And we're going to go and pull up my pre-prepared Word doc because I don't want to have to type this all from scratch. We make things easy. We don't make things that easy. If you want to start from scratch, you still got to type the words, So we'll go and create a passage here. And starting off, the passage is titled Walking on the Moon and covers a 5th grader's dream of going to the moon. So let's take that and we will drop that in. Oops, there we go. One thing you'll notice as well is you can build a lot of rich content with this too. So you have a full WYSIWYG editor there for you to avail of. We also have some really key parts that add a lot of value. We'll go into it more on the math side, but we have a fully featured math editor, image upload, and simple features which allow you to drop very rich content into the middle of any of these. So you can drop things like video, audio, that kind of thing in line with it. Really allows you as you get into the higher production values of content, build really interactive content. So let's save that, and we'll actually move that to the prose section because I put it in the wrong one. As you can see, whenever you want to move content, it's very drag and drop. And we'll go and we'll drop in our prose piece here. So short poem called Moon Landing. And all right, let's save that for the time being. Let's start adding our questions. So one of the things when you get to this type of content is you start to end up with multi-part questions of different question types, different experiences, quite often linked scoring within them, depending on state by state how those structures are set up. So let's go and create, to start with, in this case it was a multiple choice question, so we'll just create a standard multiple choice. We'll say this question has 3 parts. Part A, part B, part C, and we'll drop in our answers here as well. Okay, that's question 1. We're going to save that. We'll add in our second question, part B. And part B is a little bit different. It's a multiple choice in this case as well, but it's a multiple select question choice. So we'll turn on multiple responses. We'll go and we'll choose the options we want in here. and we'll pick a correct answer, or 2 answers in this scenario. Save that. We'll go back into this one and choose our correct answer here as well. I am not sure if these answers are correct, by the way, so don't. There's no need for Q&A at the end that calls out whether they're correct answers or not. And the last part we'll just add in, because it's quite common within these, is an open response question. And kind of what I want to illustrate here is the mix of content. So the fact that you can use multiple question types within this, and you can also use a mix of auto scored versus manually scored. So if we go into our rich text question here, we're going to go and set in part C. And we can customize this a huge amount. Part of it is we can offer a very simple editor to students, and that's what we default to, because quite often what we want to do is make sure that the experience is there, but the editing doesn't necessarily take away from the experience of answering. Or you can go and you can turn on a lot of these features. And one thing as well as you kind of as you get into this is the overall experience of this for your in-house authors can be quite tailored as well. You at an administration level can decide which options should be shown, which should be hidden away, that kind of thing. Well, the main kind of take home here is very quickly we've gone and we've built something that's quite complex, multi-tabbed, multi-question, and we've pulled that together extremely quickly. And the main reason for that being we just have a very intuitive interface and a very easy interface for creating those kind of layouts. We also have a lot of very easy tools for restructuring and reordering content where you may need to do it. So a lot of it is to it's designed to be very, very easy to use and take the the effort and pain away from creating content. Really focus it on the pedagogy of what you're creating, not on having to do a 5-year degree to learn how to use the tools. Now, that's not to say our ultimate aim is to build something very, very simple to use, but at the same time, experience brings the most out in this as in any product. So as we work with partners like Westchester, the fact that you guys are working, day in, day out, using this tool and getting the more out of it, and that we have a close working relationship where our author trainers and our support team have and our partnerships team have a really, really good working relationship to support you guys and help kind of with new features and new functionality and help getting your team comfortable with that. I think it adds a huge amount of value in terms of Westchester as a partner for our customers.
Right, and I would second that. The response of the support team is wonderful. So even if it's something that is slightly beyond where we are, they're very good at teaching it, and within minutes we can essentially figure out how to move on and move forward. So absolutely, the support is just a wonderful part of your service. And it really helps Westchester service their customers as well.
Always good to hear it. So I'll switch in now and kind of switch to the math side of things. I actually noticed, looking at the chat part, we have a few science and STEM people in here as well. I don't have a STEM example to hand to kind of run you through in creating, but I'll make sure to call out a couple of the question types that are really valuable in that area as well as we go into it. So let's go. We're just going to save that, and we're going to go and create a new item now. So let's hit create, and we'll go in and just to call it out very quickly, kind of like obviously we have a huge number of question types that are relevant in the STEM area, but the ones I would draw anybody's attention to that are kind of especially useful in the kind of the show your workings end of things would be our updated, here we go. It would be our video recorder question type, and as you get into the area of labs and that kind of area of actual workings through with a lot of these things, it's really valuable to be able to capture that. Obviously, we'll see how long and how often kids are back in back in chemistry labs, so that kind of thing over the next year. But we could have some interesting home experiments over the next while. And equally, we've been upgrading our drawing question types within that as well to provide a lot of extra functionality around, for instance, compass tools and that kind of thing. So you can build out a bunch of STEM kind of areas within it. Part of it as well is as people are becoming more comfortable with NGSS, we're starting to see more interesting question types being built in that area. using the different tools and using the different question types together, using some of our feature partners who build interactives, which are, which go outside the standard set of Learnosity, but add value there as well. So I'll just switch back focus. So that's my quick STEM kind of aside, but we'll switch back focus to math. And so David kind of ran through kind of our math piece at a high level. So there's one part that we brought out reasonably recently that I'd like to drill into, because I think it kind of opens up a whole new world of math for a lot of our customers. And this is our math question generator. The idea here being, about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe, we started offering what we call dynamic data-driven question types. The idea where you build a table of values, and the question type can be pulled from those values. Our math question type is a step further from that, going from single item to dynamic to algorithmic, and being able to open up a more powerful generation of content within that. So let's take a look at this. It differs. It's a bit more of a guided experience than most of our question types, because what we want to do is take a complex, really complex behind the scenes piece and make it as simple as we possibly can. So we're going to go in here, we're going to create an expression, and we're going to create our parameters first. So let's say we're going to work with 3 parameters here. Our first one is going to be a list of values. It's going to be 1 of 5. Our second one is going to be a range. It's going to be between 2 and 4 with half steps in there. And our last one is going to be a list again, and we'll say 11, 24, and 37 within that. So we can add more parameters as we may need, but let's keep it simple just to be able to illustrate it. The next step within this is then that we're going to go and we're going to build the actual equation which drives the scoring behavior and the student answer. So in this case, we'll go, make it semi-complex but not overly. So we're going to say the answer is A is option A plus brackets B divided by C. And we're going to end up with some complex ones actually here, because I think I put C as quite large steps. So next we're going to go turn around and say what formats we'd accept answers in. So we'll say fraction, mixed numbers, decimals. We can say decimal places to relative to 2, for instance. We can change a lot of behavior around that. We're going to go and generate this now at this stage as well. So you can see very quickly, we've generated a complex data set out of very little. It's taken the hands out. And one of the things we designed this for was to be usable by anybody from teacher author through to contract author coming in and, just like working on things for a couple of times, through to, experienced author who's working these day to day, and make it very, very simple for them to use. So let's take a look here, and we'll go, we'll click apply, we'll choose those, and we'll actually go and edit our question text. So one of the things we can do here is say, calculate A plus B plus C. Okay, and we'll go back through and just select those values again. Generate our data set. And you can see in this case, 14 over 11 is calculated the correct answer. We can see there's multiple variants within this. We can drop through and see countless. I think in this end there were 30 or so generated for that set. So there's two main use cases we see for this, and as we get into more customers' hands, we're also starting to see more interesting use cases. The 2 main ones would be preventing soft cheating within a class environment, simply being in a scenario where you have content created once, but all the students in that class are going to see a pedagogically equivalent but different question at that time. So prevent soft looking over the shoulder behavior, that kind of thing. The other area we've seen really interesting stuff here is kind of drill and kill kind of teaching. Never the best analogy for it, but the idea being that you can give the student the opportunity to iterate through versions of this question until they find one that helps them understand the core concept that they're working through. So they may need to go through and they may see this question, they may struggle but they can click our try again button and see a different variant of it. And potentially by seeing different numbers and slightly different ways to structure it, they can find kind of that key to unlock their learning and really drive it home through that. And as I said, as we're getting this into customers' hands, we're seeing more and more value, and as we're getting this, into partners' hands, we're starting to see more and more value in terms of interest and content they can build with, and getting more of a feedback loop for us as well as to where it's really, really valuable.
Right, and you can see that the development of the items more quickly gives us the opportunity to really concentrate on trying to diversify the types of questions that we see, but not spending a tremendous amount of time once we find a question type that works. As a developer, this is just sort of a dream thing, because you could really develop a large number of items. So that's really good. Thank you for sharing that.
Not at all. So just take a moment to see if we have any Q&A on this. If we do, we can cover those. If we don't, we can dive into a couple of extra kind of features around content creation and content management as well. I think we don't have any in the panel, so we might dive into, David, what do you reckon? Will we bring through a couple of pieces of how to, of how kind of management of content and building, action content and that kind of thing can be useful?
Yeah, I think that would be really good to show them.
Great, and yeah, we're going back into these ones mostly because they're relatively new features we've released. Been working with partners and customers on them, getting a lot of feedback. Also, for anybody who may have seen Learnosity in the past, there are a lot of new experiences that help drive value here. So the first one I'd go through, just in the vein of creating rich content, would be our action editor. So let me go and create a new item, and I'll just create some dummy behavior, some dummy video within this, just to illustrate the behavior. So imagine a scenario where we have, say, for instance, a video, which we'll just leave blank for the moment, that we want a student to watch, and then we have a multiple choice question that we want them to go and answer. But we only want them to answer at the end of it. We don't want them jumping ahead. We don't want them answering the question and clicking next. We want to disable a lot of that behavior. Or we may want to make it that there's a programmatic flow, right? They're going to watch the video, they're going to have one shot at the question, and they move on to the next question directly after that.
Right. And sorry, go ahead. Yeah, we've seen from the development side, we've seen a lot more of this recently now that it's been added, and it's so simplified in the authoring tool. So I just wanted to point out that there's been quite a bit of requests for this type of activity, and you'll see why as Neil takes us through it.
Yep. So let's go in and we'll just add we'll add a match list. We'll keep it as is for the moment, just to illustrate this point. So what we're going to do is we're going to specify some behavior that should happen through the flow of this. We're going to add an action. We're going to say on the current item loading, we want we're going to first of all say we want to lock down the association question. We want to just the student can't interact with it. Next thing we're going to say we want to do is, okay, that's great. On the current item loading, we also want to start playing that video immediately. We're going to say play. Now, the next thing being, what do we want to do after that? When that video is completed, we want to unlock that question and have it available for the user to interact with. So we're going to say video player completed, playback completed. Take this association question and enable it. And we can also do kind of further on ones from that. We could turn around and we could say, okay, when the student has interacted with that, let's say we go to the next item. And we'll click apply here. So very quickly, what we've got is a flow that will happen when this video is played. Now, I haven't put any video content into it, so can't illustrate this here. We do have demos of this on our site, and if anybody wants to reach out afterwards and dive through with any of our team at ASU-GSV, I believe Nicole from Westchester will pop a link in afterwards. But What we now have is an experience whereby when the student first experiences this video will start playing, it'll play through it in its entirety. Only at the end of that will they even be able to interact with this question, and only once they've interacted with that question will they automatically navigate to the next item. So what you've suddenly gone from is, is a very flat experience where it requires the student clicking play to go and do it, and they could watch 2 seconds of it, decide to answer the question and go on to the next, to a much more structured experience that you can put in place. And the reality is you can do that with trained authors, but it's trained authors. That's all you need to have, is people who are aware of how to use the tool and how to create content, rather than something that you have to go and put months and months of engineering time in your own product into. And then the last piece I'd probably bring through here is actually showable from here as well. So one of the asks that we've had from our customer base over the last while, let me just switch to a different organization to showcase this, was to have better controls over their. So as when we first built the Learnosity author site, a lot of our customers were had small teams in here. They were building content. They had a very flat experience of it. They didn't have huge teams. Over time, that's obviously changed. We've had more and more demand for how to provide more enterprise authoring experiences, especially for organizations that work with both, in-house editing teams plus some in-house authors, plus some work that they contract out to third parties, and potentially multiple third parties in those as well. And when you get into that kind of structure, it becomes very difficult for people to move their content through their workflow, to make sure it's where it should be, to make sure it's visible to the people who should be at the right time. So one of the things we've added in there is to add in an authoring workflow to the author site. You'll see it up here. So the overall idea with this is that you as a customer can build whatever workflow stages you may want, and whatever flow through that you may want as well. You could have a 7-stage flow where people can only jump between certain states and that kind of thing. I can click into here. I can start this off at draft. The stages I can move it to are review and blocked. There may be other stages here, but they're all I can move it to from this state. I can say I move it to review, and I can say, David, I think this might meet Nebraska DOE standards, seeing as that's the one I referenced earlier. I'm not sure, can you review? I'll add that comment in, I'll apply that state, and the state within this is changed. Now, one key thing that this that drives this behavior as well is that we've also added permission groups over the last while into the author site. So you can go and you can set up your users as you may need. You can decide what permission groups and what type of content, how that content's tagged, what workflow state it's in, all that kind of thing. Really, really limit down their scope to only what they should be working on. And as items move through this workflow stage, they'll be able to see them when they're logged into the author site, and then assign them on and push them on to other groups and that kind of thing. So suddenly we've gone from a very flat working experience to a much more managed working experience that you can configure as you may want.
Right. And as you can tell, is this really the complete solution in terms of what you might be looking for in terms of item development. And Westchester, being one of the partners of Learnosity, has teams of people that can ramp up quickly and are very familiar with both the the more recent changes in the authoring platform as well as older stuff. So we're ready to go when you need us.
Yeah, definitely. If there's one thing we've learned, we're very proud of the product and the experience we've built, but it requires knowledgeable, skillful people to really make the most of it. And that's where our partners and where Westchester really come in and add huge amounts of value as a combined, complete solution to our customers.
Absolutely. So thank you very much for showing us all of the opportunities that developers have in building wonderful items for their customers. Thank you. Do you want to move on to the question and answers? Did you see anything in the chat? Let's see.
I think our presentation must have been so cohesive and covered every base, David, that we
Absolutely.
there are no questions.
For sure, you did an amazing job.
I think Nicole's gonna open live and see if anybody's interested in asking anything, I believe.
It looks like Andrea was asking if there's a discussion board. Oh, there's Andrea. Did you? No, she's on. All right.
Is there a discussion board?
As in a discussion board focused on Learnosity or on Westchester or
On Learnosity.
we don't have as in like a community kind of offering or similar.
Well, like where I could do discussion assignments.
Okay, so if you wouldn't mind just taking me through a little bit on that. Off the top of my head, I'm not 100% kind of sure how that would boil down. So if you can kind of give me a broad outline of it, I'm happy to.
Well, like if I were to post something that I wanted to have a discussion on, you know, review this article, and then, you know, everyone post, you know, a comment about, you know, what you learned.
Okay, gotcha. So the kind of the broader kind of collaborative kind of experiences.
Yeah. Yeah.
So where we're primarily focused is around the, I guess, the single user assessment experience. You know, the more single student answers. We've looked a little bit around kind of collaborative areas and where to add value. We haven't. I don't think we've yet found our kind of perfect niche in it. On how to, and you know, how to really, whether that be kind of like collaborative essay writing or whether that be, you know, kind of capture teacher question and everybody's answer in one piece. We do have some customers who've used our technology to stitch together experiences like that, you know, where essentially it's a teacher question and it's a load of student tests essentially underneath, but it's not something we have got baked into the box.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. You must be right, Neil. You must have answered every possible question.
I have a quick question about showing how your rubric functionality works in Learnosity. As you know, with HMH, we have sort of our own rubrics behind the scene, but I've never seen how, I think the ratings item type, is that what's like, what feature functions as the rubric for Learnosity? Yeah,
so the approach we took with rubrics overall was we essentially treat at the heart of it that, you know, that rubrics can be a couple of different ways, right? One, you can create simply flat rubrics that are part of like, okay, well, teacher is ultimately going to provide an objective score. So all we're going to do here is we're going to create another item which has, you know, which is a passage or similar to put information into it. And then the other side that we have is kind of more around, okay, well, teacher may have a level of subjective points to choose from, which would be the rating piece which you would have seen. And the idea that we use there is essentially that you know, a teacher scoring to a rubric is essentially like a teacher test off of a student test, right? So the idea is rating is the most commonly one used in that, but we also have people who've gone and used multiple choice questions as an easy way to build rubrics, or drag and drops as ways to categorize pieces in it. So essentially, while rating is by far the most common way, when it comes down to it, any Learnosity question type can be pivoted to power a rubric piece if it makes sense to use that interactive for a teacher to give feedback. You know, the other ones would be, we recently had some of our kind of LMS customers and partners kind of looking at, okay, well, how do I power some of that information with, you know, free text, audio recording, video recording, rubric scoring with a rating, and building a more, you know, kind of like a next gen rubric model for that. And I've done a little experimentation with the keyboard functionality for the WCAG compatibility. Can you talk a little bit about how y'all work towards WCAG compatibility? Sure. So accessibility is really, you know, is a hugely core piece for Learnosity. It's fascinating to watch over the last couple of years how, you know, for our customer base, it's gone from something that everybody was aware of, but nobody was very good at it, to people taking it to heart, right? And, you know, and really, really developing around it. We made a very early pivot to make sure that we were doing it as, you know, as part of development first, so that we weren't going to have to go and retrofit in keyboard accessibility or visual impairment access or anything like that, or screen reader access. So within that, I mean, you know, Learnosity's assessment experience is designed to WCAG AA compatible as broadly as we possibly can make it. There are some question types where the interaction stops making full sense at a WCAG level. So at that stage, we kind of go, well, that's great. We can make it very accessible. And, for instance, just recently our graphing question types became keyboard accessible, and have full keyboard overlay within it. But there are other parts where you're going to go, well, actually the route here may be to provide a more accessible experience related to the question and content you're trying to ask. But overall, Learnosity's accessibility experience is keyboard navigable and screen reader navigable. We have a couple of very question types that can be used within that as well. We have a couple of very good articles on our main website and help site about our approach to testing too, to give an idea of the kind of the processes we follow to make sure we're covering all the bases with WCAG and ensuring that we're as accessible as we can be.
Right, and we have several customers that we do this sort of work with in terms of accessibility, and Learnosity makes it very easy to do. So it sort of meets the needs that we're looking for.
Actually, just add on that, one of the great things about being an embeddable part of other customers' products is that we do our own audits and accessibility audits, but then inevitably also all of our customers go and do audits. So the reality is we end up with not just feedback from ours, but we also end up from feedback from 5 or 6 or 7 others as they go through state adoptions and all that kind of thing. So we get some great, we get great coverage as a result of that for making sure we're where we want to be.
And I don't know if James had another question, but I've always got a million questions. Neil, I've probably been a pain for you for years. But I'm wondering how, I know you've been doing some work with common cartridge accessibility, and there's a lot of sort of collaboration that you have to do with the various cartridges and the LMSs. But I know there was still kind of a ways to go for some item types as they function on Blackboard or Schoology and Canvas and those kinds of things. So, do you find that that's working well as far as collaborating with them, or are they sort of moving towards making more of these items functional? Yeah,
I mean, IMS is a great organization. It's always been a kind of pleasure. Kind of we're an associate member, it's always been great attending those conferences and working with people on that and understanding the big problems that exist there around interoperability and finding routes towards it. One of the things that we've always kind of hit with, or kind of found conflict with, is things like the most commonly available or the most commonly supported QTI spec is the 2.1 spec, and not everybody fully supports everything within that as well. So the blocker we hit is we built an array of question types to cover the interactions that we see in the, starting off from a K-12 world, originally starting off from, in early kind of 2013 state standards kind of world, and then adapting as we've, as obviously those standards spread out and there was a broader coverage or broader impact there. And what we kind of see within QTI 2.1 is there's a limit to what QTI 2.1 as a spec can represent, right? As in it doesn't have mechanisms for all of the question types and interactions that need to be there. So our route has always been to provide tooling and provide routes to be able to export from Learnosity if needed into QTI 2.1. But unfortunately, as long as the state of the specification and as long as the LMSs stay at that level as well, ultimately our question type support ends up being a superset of what's in that. So there's always going to be a little gap within it. What we see more and more as well is people moving towards LTI rather than QTI, because part of what that gives you is significantly more control both over licensing and also, but mainly over rendering. There's a huge amount of, yourself, Amy, there's a huge amount of hard work that goes into building content correctly, making sure it displays correctly to users, making sure that experience is consistent. And one of the core problems with exporting to QTI and shipping off is that as a result, you no longer have control over that end rendering happens. So what we see with a lot of our customers, they've moved towards a world of, okay, we're going to take our tool, we're going to encapsulate it in an LTI tool provider, and the assessment experience within that tool is going to be powered by Learnosity. And the advantage there being that they're rendering with the same engine that they're building, and so they know there's consistency out there with their product.
Well, I don't want to steal anyone's thunder, but I want to thank both you, Dave, and Neil for walking everybody through those demos and showing how we can work together and work with the companies to help them realize their product development objectives. And now we got some stuff in chat. Okay, some thank yous. I like those.
Thank you very much for all of you for coming. And again, if you want to reach out, Nicole put our contact information in the chat. And I know that Thursday, Neil, you guys are doing another presentation, correct? Yeah.
So Thursday, our CEO Gavin Cooney is doing a presentation on on not invented here syndrome, the build versus buy internal discussion that always happens, and the real value that you can and quality that you can now get from choosing to use experts for the parts of your product where where there's serious time and lift. And as we look to the future we're all now in, and as remote learning has become bigger and bigger, assessment is a key part of that. And our kind of mindset is it's too important to mess up. So happy to come in as experts and partners and work with our customers to make sure that we deliver as well as we can.
Absolutely. Thank you for allowing us to be part of it.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you very much.